So right now, the utility of the GDX token is one, to bootstrap liquidity on Gridex through the maker rewards, through the airdrops, also for staking as well. But the real utility of GDX is going to come in GDX Chain. GDX Chain is a layer 0 blockchain with that powered by GMOB, and it will support any layer 1 and layer 2, including Bitcoin. So for the first time since Satoshi launched his white paper in 2009, we will have true peer-to-peer trading for Satoshi's electronic cash. So you won't need to bridge, you won't need to wrap. For the first time, you'll be able to trade native Bitcoin for any other asset on any other chain. And so how will that work? That will all be powered by GDX, because GDX is going to be the native token of GDX Chain. So it'll be used for gas fees. And of course, it will be used for staking, because GDX Chain will be a proof of stake chain. But utility goes even deeper than that. So essentially, in GDX Chain, every node in the network is on its own, can be thought of like a centralized exchange. Because what does a centralized exchange do? When you deposit onto a centralized exchange, they have wallets on all the different chains that they support. And that's why, for example, if you deposit USDT on ETH mainnet to a centralized exchange, you can just withdraw USDT again on Tron mainnet, for example. And how do you do that? Because they have wallets that hold USDT on ETH. They have wallets that hold USDT on Arbitrum. They have wallets that hold USDT on Tron. And so they sort of handle going between chains for you. So every GDX node, in that sense, is essentially centralized. And that's the same with any network. If you take any node, any given node in a network, that node on its own is centralized. But once you have many centralized nodes on a network connected together, that's when you get decentralization. So essentially, how GDX Chain will work is that each GDX Chain node will have GDX delegated to it. And that GDX is not only used to secure the network as in any proof of stake chain, but also it determines how much transaction volume that node can handle. So as an example, these numbers aren't going to be correct, but just for argument's sake, if a GDX Chain node has $10,000 worth of GDX delegated to it, it can perhaps only process $2,000 worth of transaction volume. So in that way, GDX is absolutely integral to GDX Chain. And you might ask, okay, this sounds all fine and dandy, but how does this actually happen? So let's take the example of someone has BTC and they want to trade it for ETH. What happens? So they'll be trading on a grid maker order book. And so essentially why a grid maker order book? You might think, why has nobody done this with an AMM? The thing is, with an AMM is that you have one centralized liquidity pool. So when you want to do a distributed network, you've got the problem of where does that liquidity pool go? Which node gets the liquidity pool? It doesn't work, because if one node has all the liquidity, that node is now preferred and the network is not decentralized. But with grid maker order book, you can fragment the liquidity across all of the nodes in the network. But going back to how does the trade happen? So let's say person A has BTC and person B has ETH. So they want to trade on the order book. What would happen is that, so you've got both of them here and you've got a GDX node in the middle. What would happen is that person A would transfer their Bitcoin on Bitcoin mainnet to a multi-sig, the signers of which are the GDX node and person A. And on the other side, person B would transfer their ETH, again on ETH mainnet, to a multi-sig whose signers are person B and the GDX node. Once the assets once both assets are in their respective multisigs, the GDX chain node would sign off for transactions going the other way. And then the person A and person B would also be prompted to sign. So then what would happen is that person A would receive ETH on their Ethereum address, and person B would receive BTC at their BTC address. Now you might ask, okay, what happens if they don't sign? That's why the GDX chain node is only allowed to process a transaction volume that is a fraction of how much GDX is delegated to it. Because in that way, if anyone misbehaves, we can slash that stake. So that was quite a long explanation, but that was necessary for you to understand the key role that GDX is going to play. GDX is going to be the token that powers this huge cross-chain order book protocol where you don't need to worry about bridge hacks, you don't need to worry about wrapping. You can trade native assets between any chain on an order book, fully on-chain, permissionless, trustless, composable, and all of that is possible with GDX.